Again, you guys, I'm throwing a lot of new words at you. That's okay. We're going to do examples piece by piece and you'll see how it goes. So this is your kind of reference sheet that you come back to and go, what the heck is she talking later with an example? But I'll leave it for now and let's go on to our first example. Example 1 on page 4. Sorry for all that scraping, you guys. I'm using a plastic table here because the light's the best and it's just got a really rough surface. Okay, let's go on to an example. So, calculation of the lease or rental payment by the lessor, because we said the person that owns the asset, they set the payment. Now, you're going to need your financial calculator. So make sure you have it. Now, the other big thing you need to do, when we do bonds, when do bond interest payments go out? Do they go out at the beginning of the year or the end of the year? Well, they go out at the end of the year. So all our calculations we did with bonds, we're going to have payments going out at the end of the year. Well, if you think of lease or rental, think of you renting your apartment or leasing your apartment. When does the payment go out? Does it come at the beginning of the month or do they let you live there for free until the end? It's going to come out of the beginning, okay? So lease payments are generally made at the beginning of the month. So for this entire chapter or on the final when you're doing any questions, leases, you have to make sure that the BGN button on your calculator is on. So if you're using the BA2 Plus, you set it on. If you're using Excel, because of course you'll be able to use Excel because the final is open book online, make sure you put in, there's a 0 or a 1. 1, I believe, puts it at the beginning, but you can double check that. Then do the same set of keys to turn BGN off. Remember, on the file, we have bonds. BGN has to be off. So as soon as you see a question like that, make sure you know whether it's on or off. Leases, begin is on because the payments are at the beginning of the month. Bonds, it's off at the end of the month. Okay, let's go through this example just so we can get through some calculations, and then that'll be it for this video and we'll move on. Okay, January 1st, 2020, Lavery Corp, which follows ASPE in this case, leased equipment to Crane. So Crane is the lessee, Lavery is the lessor. And I know I'm sounding funny going lessee, lessor. It's just to keep it straight and remind you of the difference. Now, Lavery follows ASPE, Crane follows IFRS. Both of them have calendar year ends, so December 31st, and the following information concerns the lease. So this is the kind of information you're going to get in every single lease question. It's going to tell you, and they're in no particular order, the term is 6 years, no renewal. The equipment reverts to the lessor at the termination of the lease. It's expected to have a residual value guaranteed of $6,200. Crane depreciates all its equipment on a straight line basis. Equal rental payments are due on January 1st of each year, just to make it a little bit easier, beginning in 2020. And then go for 6 years. The equipment's fair value on January 1st, 2020 is $155,000, and its cost to Lavery is $111,000. The equipment has an economic life of 7 years. Lavery set the annual rental return to ensure an 11% rate of interest. So that's implicit in the lease. Crane's incremental borrowing rate is 12%. And the lessor's implicit rate, which is the 11%, is unknown to the lessee. So Lavery knows about it, but Crane doesn't. Now, when you're doing the entries for lessor, it's going to depend, the collectability makes a difference in what kind of lease it is. So that's why you'll see things like collectability of lease payments is reasonably predictable, no important uncertainties about unreimbursable costs, and so on. So this becomes more important when we're doing entries for lessor. Okay, so that's just a typical lease question. Now, what they want is calculate the amount of the annual rental payment, because they didn't tell us what it is. So we're going to do that using our calculator. So make sure you put BGN on. And why is that? Because it's at the beginning. The payments are at the beginning of the year. So we are trying to find payment. So PMT is what we don't know. So we've got present value. That's going to be the fair value of the asset. And that's going to be equal to $155,000. And we're going to talk about the on these in a sec. So, who's calculating this rental payment again? Is it Lavery or Crane? Well, the one that owns it, so Lavery. So this is Lavery's calculation. So Lavery's going, okay, this fair value is $155,000, and I want to try and get back as much as I can at a certain rate of interest. So N is going to be the lease term, which is 6, because we're doing this all in years. So the payments are going to be yearly. We have I, and that's going to be the lessor's rate, or the rate implicit in the lease, because they're the one deciding. So we said that was up here in point number 5, it's going to be 11%. And the future value is going to be the BPO or residual, whether it's guaranteed or not. And that's going to be $6,200. Now, before you go ahead and enter that into your calculator, we have to remember what we talked about briefly with bonds, and that's the sign on some of these things. Remember, and the future value always have the same sign. So if I make this positive, this will come positive, and that means this has to be the opposite sign. So this has to be opposite sign from future value, because it's going, the cash is going different ways. So that means it has to be negative. So go ahead and hit pause and put that in. Well, first listen to what I'm saying. Go ahead and calculate it. Just hit pause. You should get the payment equal to 3,202. And just round your dollar. If you're not getting that number, the number one problem students usually run into is this. So put a little star here because you have to have them on. The second thing, especially if you're getting an error message, if you don't make if you don't make this and this opposite, this will come with an error. Okay? Now obviously you don't have to put a plus in. This will automatically go to plus. Okay, so these are opposite and should be good. Yeah, anyway, that was that example, and I'm going to end the video here. And then, I don't know why that's going in and out of focus. Anyway, hopefully it wasn't too bad. And yeah, so as usual, you guys, if you have questions, feel free to email me. Or come to the virtual office hours. And that's it for this. I will put up video for the next section so that you don't have to listen for too long. Okay, take care.